President pushing back on claims of a slow response in Puerto Rico.
We are sending great people to help.
The president did everything in a pace that they've never seen before.
Help really is on the way. These vessels are coming into the port of San Juan, bearing much-needed assets.
We will come back stronger than ever.
The president quintupling down again on his focus on the anthem and the flag.
We look at our American flag that hangs in all of our factories. We love our American flag.
Tom Price has resigned as President Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary. Price was under fire for his use of private flights for government and personal business.
If a cabinet member or any other member of this administration is going to waste taxpayer money, they're not going to have a place in the government anymore.
President Trump and Republican lawmakers say they're now focusing on their tax plan.
A giant, beautiful, massive, the biggest ever in our country, tax cut. And it will be rocket fuel for our economy.
What song don't you like? I feel like you love a lot of songs.
There's one. I don't like a lot of the new stuff out. I feel like the classics, we've lost a sense of taste in good music in society. Whenever I go on Spotify and I listen to the latest hits, they're dreadful. It's terrible. I'm sorry, but the new Taylor Swift song that we've been debating.
Set you up for that.
Terrible. It's just terrible.
I disagree with you. We're going to have that debate throughout the course of the next
old
hour.
school classics.
It's on a poll, but we have to switch gears. Some serious stuff now as we begin. Straight to a Fox News alert. Relief is on the way. Supplies and aid will be in Puerto Rico soon. Ships now heading to shore after the island just battered by back-to-back hurricanes.
President Trump also sending 1,400 additional National Guard troops this weekend, bringing the total now to 6,000.
Fox News correspondent at large Geraldo Rivera is live in San Juan this morning. Good morning, Geraldo. What's the latest?
You know, the latest is right over my shoulder, Pete, Abby, and Todd. You'll see another barge coming in bearing necessary supplies. And I have to credit the fact that the president has agreed to suspend the Jones Act. The Jones Act required vessels only of American flag to do commerce with Puerto Rico, which was really making everything more expensive and more cumbersome and limiting the amount of goods that can come in. I had a shot just 5 minutes ago. You may roll it now of a ship laden with containers bringing vital supplies here to Puerto Rico. You know, I know that there is something called compassion fatigue. We have gone through Hurricane Harvey now. We've gone through Hurricane Irma now. And now comes Hurricane Maria. So you want to feel sorry for people. You want to be generous. You want to help out. But you just so many catastrophes competing for center stage on the, in the world platform. But I urge people not to feel that way about what's happened here. This is a calamity of historic dimension. There has never been a natural disaster that negatively impacted more people than the hurricane that hit here in Puerto Rico. People are still, the vast majority, 99% of the folks here are without electrical power. Half of them are without fresh water. There is no cell service. There's no internet. That lack of communication helps create the kind of panic that results in those lines at the gas station. But this disaster has affected every corner of this island of 3.4 million people. Ben, just pan over. It's really the historic buildings. This building behind the generator that's filled with debris there was built in the 1700s. They were in the process of restoring it. It has absolutely, as you can see, been destroyed, been devastated. It's gone and probably can never be rebuilt. Earlier, I was in the historic, impoverished but happy neighborhood called La Perla. La Perla, if that sounds familiar to folks, is the neighborhood Oscar Lewis in his classic book La Vida, where he showed a Puerto Rican family in poverty but struggling and succeeding in their life. I went through that neighborhood, and building after building in La Perla, a neighborhood that has been around for generations, have been destroyed. Manuel Torres has lived in the same house for 61 years. That house now is half destroyed. His neighbors' homes are also destroyed. Here's what he had to say about the storm's impact. Here's Manuel. What do you need now? ¿Qué necesita ahora?
We need some water. Drinking water. Yesterday they bring some water, but after 9 days, that's kind of late.
You know, there is aid arriving, obviously, because of the scope of this disaster. I don't think any reaction could have been swift enough. I don't think there was a true understanding of what has happened because, as I said, there has never been a natural disaster that negatively impacted more people, not in modern history. And I've covered volcanoes and earthquakes, and I've chased hurricanes for the last 50 years. I've never seen anything that has hurt more people than Hurricane Maria here in Puerto Rico. Back to you guys.
Geraldo, briefly, just if I could sneak in one question. What's the sense on the ground of the kind of response that they've received on the ground so far?
I think it's uneven, Pete. You know, people, are very frustrated. If you have no electrical power, even if you're, say, a relatively wealthy person living in one of those condos that line the Condado Strip in San Juan and you paid $1 million or $2 million for it and you're on the 12th floor, you have no elevator. You have no water. So if you want to flush the toilet, you've got to carry a gallon of water up 10, 11, 12 stories. They really are in extremis. The Puerto Rican people are a very compassionate and loving and neighborly folk, if I can generalize, and I know them very well. Remember, the summer I turned 16 years old, I live with my Aunt Ellie here, and she's a good example. She has no generator. She has no water supply. They are modest people, middle-class people. They are struggling, and this is the new normal. I think everybody gets the fact that it's going to be months before power is restored. And I think that the challenge President Trump faces when he arrives here on Tuesday, and God bless the president for coming here to Puerto Rico and seeing personally what is going on. The challenge he faces, though, is not to encourage generosity. The challenge is that the infrastructure of this island has been destroyed. There are 16,000 miles of telephone and electric cables, for example. They have been neglected. The poles are rotten. They are down. There's scarcely a block in this whole island that has an intact electrical cable. They're all above for reasons that someone better explain to me. The wires are all above ground where the hurricane swept them out in the first minutes of the impact. Is the United States ready for something akin to the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe after World War II? Is this going to be the Trump plan? Because I think that's the only salvation, ultimately, long-term for Puerto Rico. Back to you.
Geraldo, that's why it is so important that you were on the ground there helping us all get a better perspective. He's so right. I mean, the media oftentimes focuses when the hurricane hits, and it's breaking news and it's wall-to-wall coverage. And usually the most devastating parts of a hurricane and storms like this is weeks and months after it hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Geraldo, this is where he's at his best, when he's on the ground. I mean, he's feeling with these people. And as he said, the president will be there on Tuesday.
And speaking of the president, he tweeted, "Fake news, CNN and NBC are going out of their way to disparage our great first responders as a way to, quote, get Trump. Not fair to," I believe he's trying to say, Puerto Rico there,
to first responders.
Effort, or first responders.
Or the effort. You know, he's saying this shouldn't be an anti-Trump story. This should be a story about how do we help people as quickly as possible? How do we get the logistics right? How do we cut through the bureaucracy, which can prevent things happening quickly and common sense happening? He's laser focused on it. He's going there on Tuesday. And, careful where the criticism comes from until we have information on the ground and find out whether, how the execution is actually going.
Right. As Geraldo was saying, it's just still so early, and it's so important to get on that ground to see it for yourself. But we shouldn't be sitting here in our studios already politicizing this, and we don't have all the facts. We don't know exactly what's going on behind closed doors. Also in Washington, D.C., the fact that the president has a number of people helping him work on the disaster relief effort. So
that's right. But we're also focused on things here at home, a national conversation that this president sparked when he, at a rally in Alabama, said we should be standing for our national anthem. Well, tomorrow there are more Sunday football games. And last weekend we saw over 200 players decide to take a knee during the national anthem. The question is, how will it compare? Todd, we saw a preview on Thursday Night Football, the Packers standing locked arm to arm. The president says, hey, good, they're standing. We'll see what happens on Sunday.
Teams coming out and announcing what they're going to do. The Saints said when they kick off in London tomorrow morning at around 9:30 our time, saying they're going to kneel before the anthem and stand for the anthem. But
so they're not going to kneel for our anthem and then stand for God Save the Queen?
Which happened last. The NBA is now having to get ahead of this because they realize what a big deal this has been for the NFL, and they don't want to be stuck in this controversy because it's not good for ratings. It's not good for advertisers. It's not good for anything they're trying to do. So The NBA now trying to get ahead of it, saying that we need to reinstate that rule that there will be no kneeling during the national anthem. And instead, they're offering up some ideas, just like we saw with Green Bay, to show more unity together.
Yeah, so they're trying to have their cake and eat it, too. They're trying to straddle it and say, well, we're going to stand for the anthem because little kids shouldn't watch their heroes take a knee while they come to watch a game and disrespect their country. So instead, well, maybe we'll play something on the board or give a player a microphone and they can talk about social justice. Guess what? I don't think fans want to see that. And we had legendary football coach Lou Holtz on. He talked about how that hurts in the locker room as well. Take a listen.
If you don't have a locker room that's joined with one common cause, you're going to have problems. So what the owners did when somebody from the far left said, hey, you need to have this disrespect for the national anthem, it created a division in the locker room. They're trying to do it. Now, they're smart enough. They want to win, but sometimes there's more important things than winning, and showing respect for the flag is certainly one of them.
Pete, right. You get that. I mean, the locker room, I don't know if you've been in a lot of locker rooms, but Pete and I know, grew up playing sports. It's so you can have the best team on paper. If you don't have that locker room cohesiveness, you're going nowhere. And if you have sort of a team that has a lot of guys with big hearts, but there's a cohesive locker room, you can win championships. It is so important.
I used to debate politics on the bus on the way to away games in college with Nate Walton. His dad is a famous liberal. I'm conservative. We used to have debates on the bus, and the team would listen in and chime in. But once you get in between the lines, that was all gone. So you can have these conversations, but doing it out in the spotlight and using your platform to advance political agendas, that'll get under the skin of teammates, and then you do have fissures in the locker room. That's a problem.
Leave it off the field. Lou Holtz said so many great things in that interview. He said, if you don't have respect for yourself, you don't have respect for anyone else around you. You doing that interview, Pete, was like a little girl at a boy band concert.
Which interview?
With Lou
Holtz.
Oh, I know.
You were so excited to interview him. It was great.
Coach, give me your wisdom.
I want to hear it all. All right, we have some other headlines we're following this morning I want to bring you, starting with a police officer murdered in ambush. 29-year-old detective Kristen Hearn seen there shot and killed while responding to a suspicious vehicle call in Georgia. This man and a woman coming out of the woods approaching the officers. The man opening fire, killing Detective Hearn and injuring the other officer, David Goodrich. Detective Hearn leaves behind a husband and a 3-year-old son. And the out-of-control violence in Chicago revving up again for the weekend. This time, 9 people shot, 2 of them killed in just 7 hours overnight. It is the newest round of violence in that city, plagued with crime, as we know. Just 2 weekends, there were 30 shootings that left 11 people dead. Those incidents adding to the 500 homicides already committed in the year 2017.
But let's
alone.
continue to turn away the federal government.
Unreal.
We don't need their help, right? Wow.
Also, this O.J. Simpson wants to go to Florida once he gets out of prison, but Florida, they don't want him. The state attorney general sending a letter to the Florida Department of Corrections instructing them to tell Nevada authorities that Florida objects to Simpson serving his parole there. The state is where Simpson's financial team has been shielding his assets. The Juice was convicted of robbery and kidnapping in Nevada in 2008, and he could walk free as early as Monday. Also, the NFL anthem protest sparking new rules for high school sports, and now some student athletes in Louisiana and member of school clubs say either stand for the national anthem or face consequences. A superintendent who created the directive joined us earlier, and here's what he said.
Never in my wildest imagination would I have thought that actually requiring our student athletes to stand for something so reverent as our national anthem. We stand, for that flag. We stand for our country. We stand for our veterans.
Yes, we do. Well, some schools are taking a similar approach, like this one in Illinois, by walking onto the field with officers. A pretty powerful shot right there, you'll see.
Maybe the NFL could learn from high school football players.
Yeah.
All right. Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price is out following outrage over his use of private planes. So who's taking his place and what happens next? Ellison Barber, live from Washington, coming up next.
And as these anthem protests continue, how did the vets feel? Well, one veteran, also a member of Congress, Congressman Duncan Hunter, joins us live. He's up early in California, and he's coming up. Well, welcome back to Fox and Friends. More big news out of Washington yesterday. Now former Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price tendering his resignation to the president accepting it immediately.
Well, their report said the president was going to make his decision last night, so I think this was him preemptively saying, I'm just going to resign, because the president was asked about this a couple days ago, about the fact that he has spent over $1 million, according to some reports, on flights to get to what he said it was within protocol. But as Trump has said a number of times, this is part of the swamp that I don't want to be anywhere near. And so someone asked him, what are you going to do about your Health and Human Services Secretary? He gave that classic Trump look, and he
You
said,
don't want that.
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Look, there's a definite segment in society, I will put myself in this group, that really does want everybody in that swamp known as D.C. to account for every single dollar they spend of our taxpayer money, regardless of party, Republican, Democrat, other, it doesn't matter. If I'm giving you my hard-earned taxpayer dollar, I want you to account for that, and that is not this. We had Corey Lewandowski on earlier, and he echoed those same sentiments. Take a look.
We have not seen the repeal and replace done. Tom Price was the point on that, but I don't think that's the reason that the repeal and replace not being repealed is the reason Tom Price is out. Tom Price is out because he wasted taxpayer money, and the president said it will not be tolerated. He spends taxpayer money like it is his own. We have seen him renegotiate things time and time again. And if a cabinet member or any other member of this administration is going to waste taxpayer money, they're not going to have a place in the government anymore.
Especially when you came in as an outsider businessman who said, I'm going to run these things more efficiently. He's found a lot of places already to save money for the government. He cites the F-35, the new Air Force One, wherever he's focused, he's like, let's get it under budget and on time. And then you see a cabinet secretary doing this. Oh, and also the one who couldn't get repeal and replace of Obamacare.
Certainly didn't help.
You add all that up, and it's you're fired.
And the week you're talking about tax reform and how we are focused on that forgotten man, getting more money into your wallets. This does not sit very well. Ultimately, President Trump wants people on his team that get results, and this was not leading to that. So, anyway, the first cabinet member to resign.
Tom Price, good man, but moving on. Yep.
Speaking of moving on, as those anthem protests continue, how do the vets feel? Well, one veteran, also a member of Congress, Duncan Hunter, joins us live coming up.
And the protest even spilling over into youth football leagues. So how should you talk to your kids about this whole controversy? Our panel of moms weighing in after this.
22 minutes after the hour now, some quick headlines on your Saturday morning. A union leader for the Las Vegas police demanding an apology from NFL player Michael Bennett. This after 3 police officers were cleared of any wrongdoing after detaining the Seattle Seahawks defensive end outside a casino last month. Bennett claimed one officer pointed a gun at him, threatening to blow his head off. And there's no end in sight for the unrest in St. Louis. Protesters now unfurling an anti-cop banner right in the middle of a St. Louis Cardinals game. Protests then spilling outside of Busch Stadium. The latest demonstrations come 2 weeks after a former officer was acquitted in the shooting death of a black man. And the Justice Department now charging 3,800 alleged gang members in the U.S. and Central America, including members of MS-13 and one of their main leaders. More than 70 of those defendants living in 6 U.S. states, including California, New York, and Ohio. Pete, over to you.
Thanks, Todd. Well, President Trump standing behind our American flag, sending a message of patriotism in the wake of the NFL players protesting our national anthem.
The soul of a country is found in the people who make it a home. We can build this future together as one team, one people, and one great American family. We love our American flag.
Yes, we do. So when will these players realize that we're all on the same team? Here to react is California Congressman and Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran, Representative Duncan Hunter. Great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Great to be with you guys. I was there with Pete.
You were, and I know that you guys go way back and know each other. This message, though, that we heard from the president of being together, being one team, when I think about that, I actually think first and foremost about our military, because that is what they teach you before you go out to battle, is you're all in this together. You got to help your brother. You got to help each other out.
You have to, and I've been at these ceremonies where they drape the flag over the casket with a U.S. serviceman aside. I was in Afghanistan a couple of years ago. You watch that ceremony. You go kneel in the C-130 with the casket there, the flag draped coffin. And I've also been here where, as a congressman, I've given that folded flag to a Gold Star mom or a Gold Star wife or someone that's lost their son or husband in combat in Iraq or Afghanistan. And what the flag means to that mom or to that wife or that spouse, and what that flag means draped over that coffin. I think that our NFL players need to be educated. I think that's what this is down at its basis form. I don't think they understand. Most military or most NFL players have no mind for military service. They're not going to do it. They're talented. They're well paid. They work hard, but they don't really understand what the flag means, and they don't realize that they're disrespected. Even here in San Diego, our sports radio guys, and I watch ESPN, and I love football. I love sports. They don't understand the audience of guys like me, of people like me that know what the flag stands for, know what the anthem stands for, and they're turning us off in droves. That's what's happening right now.
Duncan, why has the flag become political?
Oh, that's a great question, P. I think from the NFL players, what they say is it represents all the bad things about America. That's what they say. I think that was a false narrative created by the liberals when this whole thing first started, because they don't have the education that they need to realize that the flag is what we follow in the battle. That's what the flag stands for. It doesn't stand for slavery. It doesn't stand for civil rights abuses. It doesn't stand for what we did to the Native Americans when we first came here, or what Christopher Columbus did, for God's sakes. What it stands for is what America means to guys like me and guys like you and the millions of people that have given their lives for this country and all the wars we've had. That's what we follow into battle. That's what we give the wife that lost her husband. That's what we give the mom that lost her son or daughter. Yeah. That's what it means, and the players just don't get it.
Yeah, and the lives that continue to be lost fighting for all of our freedoms to be able to do what we do. It's such an important issue. I want to get your thoughts quickly on pardoning patrol agents. This is something you're passionate about, something you've put a request in for?
Yeah. Ramos and Capion. Ramos and Capion got put in jail. They got 10 and 11 years of jail for chasing down a drug dealer who the Department of Justice then gave immunity to the drug dealer that had over 700 pounds of marijuana, who got shot in the bottom. Got shot in the rear end. The Border Patrol agents went to jail. The drug smuggler got immunity by our Department of Justice, he then got put in jail for 9 years for bringing drugs back across. President Bush commuted their sentence in his last day in office, but they're still considered criminals. And I think after I watched President Trump pardon Joe Arpaio, I think he had to do the same thing for Ramos and Campion. They're not able to vote. They can't buy a weapon. They can't enter into federal service, even after serving honorably in the Border Patrol, in my opinion. So I think it's a good thing for Trump to look at, and it would go right along with his pardoning of Arpaio.
If there's anyone that's going to take a look at a pardon of former Border Patrol agents, it certainly is this president. And you know how much it matters what happens after the fact. The legacy of your actions matter. So I'm sure the president will be taking a hard look at your request. Duncan Hunter, Congressman from California, thanks for your time.
Thanks for waking up so early there in California.
He didn't want to get up this early. We made him do it.
But he's in San Diego, so I don't feel too bad for him. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up in high school, high school kids, they're most focused on car sports and graduation, but not for this teenager. He is now running for governor, the potential GOP nominee. He's going to join us next.
Awesome. And the anthem protests even spilling over into youth football leagues. So how should you talk with your kids about the anthem kneeling controversy? Our panel of moms weighs in ahead, and Abby is going to walk down those glass stairs and go talk.
I cannot wait for this. Protesting of our national anthem is now filtering down into our schools. Last week, an entire youth football team of players aged 7 and 8, they took a knee during the anthem. You can see it there. And on Monday, a California school district the honor band played the anthem on one knee before the Oakland's baseball game there. And earlier in the show, we told you about the Louisiana school district requiring student athletes to stand during the anthem. This, of course, as a youth league in Texas is avoiding the controversy altogether by canceling the anthem before their games. Here to share their thoughts, a panel of politically active moms. I'm so excited to get all of your takes on this. This is what the country's been talking about. We want to hear how you've been talking about it and your kids. Just quickly, how many of you have kids that play in sports right now? Okay, well, Beth, let's start with you. You said you had a son that plays football.
I do, yes. I have a son who's a junior in high school, and he does play football. And absolutely, it has been conversation, definitely over the last few weeks, especially because we also went to the Buffalo Bills football game last Sunday, and there was a lot of controversy at that game. You know, what we talk about is there was a time in our country where the older generation actually taught the younger generation how to show respect. And, you know, that's not being done anymore. We have an entire generation that's, instead of acting and doing what's right, they're acting on their feelings. And, you know, it's not respectful. It's not honorable. We don't believe it's the right thing to do. We need to show respect for our country. And my son absolutely believes that way also.
And respect for that flag. Gina, you also have a son that's a freshman, right? Playing football.
At this very minute.
At this minute. So how, I'm sure you've had these conversations with him. How do those go?
Yeah, I have two sons. One's in 9th grade playing football. The other's in college. And, of course, I'm a professor. And this is one of the most heated exchanges we've had all semester. We start out every class talking about what's going on in the world and in politics. And this is one of the most heated exchanges we've had among college students. And I think for my son, he's really torn by this issue. He's a huge New England Patriots fan. And when he saw Tom Brady and the others lock hands and he saw people go down on their knees, he's also a very patriotic person who supported Donald Trump. And so he felt very torn by this entire issue because on the one hand, he wants to support the players and the teams and he's sensitive to the racial inequality issues. And on the other hand, he really feels like there should be respect. And he's at a private Catholic school where they really instilled that in him. And so I think a lot of the young men there, it's a very big football program, feel really similarly torn by this issue. And they want to support their brothers on the field. And they also want to be patriotic. And they want to be sensitive to these racial issues that they feel are part of their generation and what they're experiencing.
And we want that patriotism as part of our next generation coming up. Kathy, your kids are homeschooled. It doesn't mean that they are not talking about this as well. They're not passionate.
They are. You know, and as a black mother, when I look into the eyes of my black children, everything within me wants to instill in them that they are limitless, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that they have actually been knitted together with purpose. So how bleak is it for parents, for a certain group of parents to ingrain in their children that because you're black in America, you will be oppressed? That's a false narrative to begin with. But how bleak is that that is the narrative, that because you're black, because of the color of your skin, you will be considered less than, you will be considered to be oppressed in some fashion. And not only is it bleak, but it's an oppressive cloud that will hang over the heads of these little impressionable souls all the days of their lives. And so as a mother, when I look into the eyes of my black children, I want to instill in them that in America, the great equalizers is the willingness to educate yourself and the willingness to work hard for what it is that you want, and you can achieve anything here.
Succeed. There does seem to be, Tiffany, this misconception today that you're speaking to, Kathy, that if you are not supporting kneeling during the national anthem, that you then do not support racial equality, right? That you are against blacks getting what everyone deserves.
Right.
Is that fair?
You know what, Abby, this weighs really heavily on me. My dad played for 11 years in the Major League Baseball and founded the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association. So this is definitely something that hits home for me. And what I would tell my children is to consider the original intent outlined by Colin Kaepernick, which was to, you know, I would ask them to consider which group is the most effective at raising awareness of issues of ongoing social injustice and systemic oppression. And history is cyclical. So as history considers Colin Kaepernick and the ripple effects that are felt by this particular protest, how will history look upon him? And when should you speak up? When should you speak out?
Dr. Janine, how do you feel about that?
I agree. I think that Colin Kaepernick is a hero. And as I I do. And as I talk to, I see some of the Giants, I see some of the Jets as my patients. And as I talk to them and I talk to my daughter, I do think that what they're doing is they're taking a knee against racial inequality and against police brutality. And that's, I believe, what Kaepernick intended. And then I looked at the flag code. And the flag code says that you can't wear a flag on your T-shirt. You can't put the flag horizontal. It doesn't say anything about taking a knee and that being disrespectful. My husband is an ex-captain in the Army. My father-in-law is a vet. I have many, many members that are very patriotic of my family. We do believe in patriotism, but I do think that the intent and the spirit is just to equalize. This is about a mouth of equalizing, and that is their platform. And I agree with what Tiffany was saying about this is their platform, and they want to broadcast to the world.
Kim, I know you're wanting to jump in. I want to make sure we get everyone's voice here. Kim, go ahead.
And I don't disagree that every child should have the ability to express who they are and what they want to express. I think that message has gotten muddled. We have a young man in my daughter's school who won't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. When asked about it, he said, because I don't have to, because the football players don't. I don't think he understood, you know, what the background and what the purpose was, and it comes off as being anti-patriotic. And I guess my point is to the hypocrisy that we talked about earlier. If it's okay for students to take a stand on racial inequality, and it absolutely is, it's their you know, prerogative to do that, then they should also be able to take a knee and pray before a game. They should also be able to express themselves however they want to. My one caveat with my own daughter is, you got to understand what you're doing. And you have to do it for a purpose, not just because other people are doing it.
That's great advice. Deneen, I want to get you in here, and Rebecca. Deneen, go ahead.
Well, I think the NFL is alienating their fan base, and you see the reaction.
We've already seen that. We've seen the ratings, and now we're seeing they're not kneeling as much, and that's obviously for a reason.
And people are speaking with their wallet. People spend thousands of dollars to be entertained. They don't want to be lectured to and see all these protests that are going on. They should do these protests on their own time. There's another place and time to do so. As for the children, I think it's really unfortunate that they are being misguided by adults, people that they look up to. I am old school. You stand up, you take off your hat, put your hand over your heart, and honor our country, honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, and honor those who are serving in the military today.
Absolutely. It sends this bigger message, Rebecca, that we can protest, we can have free speech, we can stand up for what we believe in, but we should not disrespect what this country was founded on, the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag as one of those.
Hand on heart, this is our one tradition, Abby, that we all share as Americans. And remember what that anthem is about. It's about an aching doubt. A prisoner in Baltimore Harbor watches his friends and neighbors under bombardment, and he wonders, is our flag still there? Yeah. Did they survive? It's about doubt. You don't have to believe 100%. America doesn't have to be perfect for you and me and all of us to find enough good to put our hands on our hearts for 2 minutes. An F-22 pilot over Syria flies an 8-hour mission. We can put our hands over our hearts for 2 minutes and respect our beloved flag.
Absolutely. I can't help but think about our military members serving overseas right now in places like Kabul, spending that time watching sports, some of their favorite times in the day, and what they're thinking about all of this playing out. Guys, thank you so much, ladies, for your perspective. Also important. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Abby. Thank you.
All right, coming up, most high school kids are focused on cars, sports, and graduation, but this kid is running. Yes, he's running for governor of the state of Kansas as a Republican. The potential GOP nominee, he's going to join us live. I cannot wait for that. That's up next. But first, let's check in with Neil Cavuto for a look at what's coming up on the Cost of Freedom business book.
Hey guys, good morning. Well, if President Trump wants to make the tax code simpler, does he need to sell it like the Gipper? Then for everyone trying to turn Maria into President Trump's Katrina, they clearly didn't hear what Puerto Rico's governor just told me. And if NFL players continue to protest the red, white, and blue, someone here says NFL stadiums can give up all of that taxpayer green. We'll see you soon.